In our last booklet, in Chapter 1, we're going to refer to slope as a rate of change. So we're going to use that idea of slope and see how it can be used to express how quickly things are changing. So slope is calculated as the change in vertical distance divided by the change in horizontal distance. So if you're calculating the slope of a line plotted on the graph, how would you calculate this? Well, what's the change in the rise between 0 and 4? We can just take 4 minus 0 and know that that's gone up 4. The run, again, 4 minus 0 will give us how far it's gone over and would tell us that the run is 4. So we can pick any 2 points in the line. You could say between this point right here and this point right here, 4 minus 3 for the rise would be 1. 4 minus 3 for the run would be 1, and you'll notice that 1 divided by 1 is 1. It doesn't matter which points we pick. I could pick instead, I could choose that point and this point. Now for the rise, 4 minus 2 is 2. 4 minus 2 for the run is 2, so 2 over 2 is still 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1 over 1, or we could say 4 over 4, it all equals 1. So that's one way we can calculate slope if we're given a graph like this. And we mentioned this a little bit towards the end of the last booklet. If a graph falls or goes down from the left to right, this is negative because the rise is going down. So just like we read in Canada, we read from left to right, we read our graphs from left to right. So it's higher here, it's lower here, so it's going down, it's a negative slope. If it's going up, it's a positive slope. So those are important things to remember here as well. Okay, example 1. We're going to consider each of the following graphs and are the slopes positive or negative, and then calculate each slope as a fraction. So here, the slope starts down low, goes up, so this is a positive slope. And then we want to calculate it as a fraction, so the slope is the rise over run. Or we can say that's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So again, we're just going to pick a point. So here, when we're labeling this, we label our x first. So this would be x is 4 and y is 3. So that means x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 3, because if we go along on our x-axis, we get to 4. If we go along on our y-axis, you can see the letters here. We'll go up to to 3. And here's another point here. That's a nice easy one to work with, and that's 0. So it went up 3 minus 0, and x is 4, so that's 4 minus 0. So we're going to call these y2 and x2 and y2. And so we get that's 3 over 4, and that is our slope as a fraction. So it's positive, and it's 3 over 4. Let's look at B. Again, going from left to right, here's where we start, and it's down low, and it rises up, so this is also positive. And now we're going to pick 2 points. Well, we have a point here. Here the x is equal to, we look, go down here, this is 5, so that'll be 6. And we're going to call this, I always call the one on the right x2 and y2. You don't have to, it doesn't matter. That's just the way I like to do it. Y2, we go over to the y-axis and we're at 10. And here, x1, go down here, that's 1, 2, 3. And, oops, sorry, that's y1, pardon me. Let's write that properly. y1, so I go to the y-axis, and that's 5. So the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So it's equal to, my y2 is 10, my y1 is 5, my x2 is 6, and my x1 is 3. You'll notice that here, x1, y1, I have a 3 and a 5. Those show up here, 3 and 5. Here, x2, y2 is a 6 and a 10. They show up here, 6 and 10. Y's are always on the top, X's are always on the bottom. So 10 minus 5 is 5, 6 minus 3 is 3, and there is our slope as a fraction. Now here we look, and we're going from left to right. It starts high and goes low, so this is a negative slope. So when we calculate our slope, we should expect to get a negative answer. So m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This time I'm going to label them from left to right. So here, let's go y1 and x1, just because it makes it a little bit easier maybe the way we see it. So y1, we go to the y-axis, and we're at 10. x1, you go to the x-axis, well, we're at 0. And here this will be y2, x2. So y-axis, I go over to the y-axis, I'm at 5. x2, I go down here, and that's 9. So let's plug these values in. y2 is 5, minus y1, I look up here, is 10. x2 is 9, and x1 is 0. Now when you're doing this, be really careful. You see 5 minus 10. Some of you might be tempted to just write 5 because you know the difference between there is 5 and you're thinking 10 minus 5. If you put this into your calculator, 5 minus 10, it will give you negative 5. So really watch that. If the first number is smaller, you're going to end up with a negative number. Make sure you're not just looking and going, oh yeah, I know the difference is 5. We actually have to remember that we're going into the negative. So if it started at 5 degrees Celsius, I should erase this a little bit because it looks kind of like a 6. If it started at 5 degrees Celsius and went down 10 degrees, we know that we would now be at minus 5 degrees. Or if you had $5 and you gave someone $10, essentially you would, or now you owe someone $10, now you'd owe them $5. That one wasn't as clear. So 9 minus 0 is 9. So there's our slope as a fraction, is negative 5/9. Okay, we see it's negative because 5 minus 10 is negative, and this is a positive. It stays positive, so we have a negative slope, negative 5/9.